seem almost incomprehensible. I think PBS is the right place for the series Native America. We represent the way that Native Americans live within their landscapes. PBS has brought to me the rest of the world, and I think that's important.
You're watching New England Public Media on WGBY Springfield.
I received the removal notice in February. The first thought that came to me was, why me?
Should the people who risk their lives to defend this country be forced to leave it?
Veterans are dying without their family, without the country they fought for.
I didn't get married to live a world apart from him.
We're gonna keep fighting for the veterans so this nightmare ends.
American Exile Tuesday at 10 or stream at nepm.org.
Coming up, stories we're connecting you with tonight. A lost soldier returns home.
You don't fully understand the sacrifice he made. It wasn't just someone who was injured in battle, he was killed in battle at 18.
Local Vietnam veterans reflect on their experiences through photography.
I was using film as a way to get myself married back into society. I was using it as a vehicle to understand what normal is.
And preserving the memories of those who made the ultimate sacrifice for our country.
People don't realize their service, their sacrifice, what they gave, and what they contributed back to the community afterwards.
We'll bring you those stories and more as we explore the creativity, culture, and community that make us Western New England. Up next on Connecting Point.
Support for Connecting Point is provided by our contributing viewers.
Good evening, and thanks for joining us for Connecting Point. I'm Saidalis Bauer. Yesterday was Veterans Day, and in honor of that, tonight we're bringing you stories of service and sacrifice from our community. A sad reality of war is that when a life is lost in the line of duty, it's not always brought back home. Soldiers missing in action or soldiers whose remains are not identified can result in years of unresolved feelings for their family. Some question if their loved one is really gone, and many hope that one day they may come home. As Connecting Point's Ross Lipman shows us, in Pittsfield, a family went 8 decades asking this very question and finally received answers about the day that led the United States to enter World War II and the 18-year-old they lost.
When Pearl Harbor was bombed, everybody in the country knew it.
President Roosevelt said in a statement today that the Japanese have attacked Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, from the air.
What they didn't know was who's missing, who's accounted for.
Every time I asked a question, I got tears, no details. I can only guess that it was because of my uncle's death in Pearl Harbor. You know, he had died at such a young age, at 18 years old, and it was just a grief that the family never got over.
Navy Electrons mate 3rd Class Roman W. Sadlowski, known as Raymond by his family, was aboard the USS Oklahoma on December 7th, 1941. It's Raymond's last day on Earth.
It was hard to get information about my Uncle Raymond. His picture was up on a wall in the dining room, and every time I asked, about him, tears would stream down my grandmother's face, and same with my mom. You know, he was close to his family. He was a devout Catholic. He started working at General Electric, which is local, industrial town, and for whatever reason, joined the Navy at a very young age. And that's what I know about him.
In Pittsfield, the Sadlowskis are left with a letter from President Roosevelt, but Roman's body left unaccounted for, a tally that would rise to over 72,000 soldiers during World War II.
That effect has to be, obviously is very devastating to the family members. the trepidation that came with that had to be tremendous. It had to be, you know, the waiting to hear that call. They wait and wait and wait and wait.
Then, this past December, 77 years later, Raymond Sadlowski's remains are identified in Hawaii, closing a circle that outlived most of Raymond's immediate family, leaving Dennis Arsenault, his nephew and last living local relative, with the final pieces of Sadlowski's past.
My first thoughts when I saw the Purple Heart, that it, you know, it's a medal. It's meaningless without context. You know, his name is printed on the back, and but looking at it, you don't fully understand the sacrifice he made. It wasn't just someone who was injured in battle; he was killed in battle. You know, at 18.
It was in the final years of Jessie Arsenault's life, the daughter of Mary and Valentine, brother of Raymond, that she gives her son Dennis the Purple Heart, birth certificate, and letter from President Roosevelt. The weight of these three items Dennis suspects she carried for a long time.
I wish that my grandmother had known that his remains were identified and that he was truly dead. She never knew that.
For Dennis, one more question remains left unanswered. The surviving members of Raymond's family can now choose where his remains should go, which includes here in Pittsfield, alongside Raymond's parents.
Having remains be placed on top of his mother and father's remains, to me, might not be the right place for him. You know, I think that his place and time was at Pearl Harbor, and you know, if and when I get a vote, that's probably what I will vote for.
Every Friday night, Connecting Point explores the creativity, culture, and community that make us Western New England. But it doesn't stop there. You can find us online anytime for exclusive features and content. This weekend, the Crafts of Coleraine Studio Tour opens up the workshops of the many craftspeople who live in the Hilltown region to the public, and Connecting Point's Brian Sullivan gives us an exclusive look.
This gives people the opportunity to go to the different artisan studios or workshops and see. Sometimes they'll put on demonstrations and you kind of see the artist on their home turf.
My basket studio is above my garage and it's not heated, but I tried to set up my home and my studio display for people to come in and see what I do, and can make a purchase if they happen to be in the shopping mood.
Don't miss this digital exclusive, available online right now at nepm.org/connectingpoint. Jim Cryan and Dave Tela left college to serve in the U.S. Army in Vietnam in the late 1960s. The two were both studying art and photography at their respective colleges when they entered the military. Both were able to acquire a camera and, when time would allow, snap images documenting what they were experiencing during the war. Producer Dave Frazier sat down with both photographers to learn how that time in their life still affects them today.
Dave Tela was a Cobra gunship pilot serving in Vietnam from 1969 to 71. Before enlisting in the Army, the Turners Falls native spent 3 years studying photographic illustration at Rochester Institute of Technology.
So when I got to Vietnam, my skill focus was on flying, not photography. It wouldn't be until about 2 to 3 months into my stay in Vietnam that I would decide to get a Kodak Instamatic camera and start taking some photographs.
Tela took pictures for several months before realizing that what he was doing as a pilot was in sharp contrast to what he wanted to do as a photographer.
There was an odd twist to being in combat, shooting, and then feeling like I could turn around, be this other person with a camera, be off shooting photographs, and that was just never to be. I mean, one day I just put it all away just ignored it.
Ignored it until his friend and former college roommate, John McCarthy from the Valley Photo Center in Springfield, contacted him and asked if he would like to display his images, along with another Vietnam vet, in an upcoming show called Vietnam Then and Now.
This is the very first time these photographs have been in public. Very first time. These photographs represent what I was doing exactly 50 years ago today. Because I was in Vietnam 50 years ago today, and I had already shot a few of the photographs, and it'd be another couple months and I'd shoot the rest of them, and that would be it. But it was the very time period I was over there.
I wasn't your typical soldier. I was already 4 or 5 years older than most of the other draftees.
Jim Cryan also served in the U.S. Army. His time in Vietnam was spent as an interpreter of aerial infrared images.
Before I went south to North Carolina to Fort Jackson for basic training, I was filling up pads of paper. I'm going to be the Norman mailer of this war.
Along with a typewriter, Cryan purchased a 35mm Yashica camera and began documenting all that he was seeing.
The people fascinated me. I was at Marble Mountain on the base in Dong Ha, was a little town, and the buses would come through with people sitting on the hood, on the roof, hanging off the sides, you know, fantastic things. But troubling too, across the street from our barracks in Marble Mountain was the NSA hospital, and A Shaw Valley was going on at the time, and we couldn't sleep nights because the choppers were coming in all night long, unloading wounded and dying, and probably gone too.
Both Tela and Cryan didn't know each other when they were in Vietnam, but would become roommates when they attended grad school at UMass, along with John McCarthy. They both admit it was a struggle to reintegrate back into society once they came home, but found the visual medium of film and photography to be of some help.
I got into motion pictures instead of still photography because motion picture work was a team effort, and that got me through a point where I was using film instead of still photography as a way to get myself married back into society. I was using it as a vehicle to understand what normal is.
Both men would go on to have successful careers, but appreciate the opportunity to share their images and that part of their lives with an outside audience.
It's an emotional challenge, an unexpected emotional challenge, but at the same time, it gets me past being still in the closet. And that's one of the strange releases about these photographs being up.
Since his death in 1944, Pittsfield native Eugene Kalinowsky has been known as one of thousands who made the ultimate sacrifice during World War II. The story of a plane crash and his subsequent death has been passed down through the surviving members of his family. But earlier this year, it was discovered that the last moments of Kalinowski's life were far different than both his country and his family had been led to believe. Connecting Point's Ross Lipman tells us the true story of his final mission and how it's brought together two people wanting to keep his memory alive.
This cold makes my eyes water.
Every December, just before the holidays, Carol Brooks comes to the Pittsfield Cemetery to decorate the graves of family she's lost.
Well, when you lose a child, it's very difficult.
Some gone much too young, like her daughter, Kristen.
She was 4.5, but she ended up having a heart attack.
Then there's her grandfather, Vasily Kalinowsky.
He was a good grandfather, very close with us.
Carol could spend all day.
My father, my mother.
In the cold.
She was a wonderful mom, wonderful. My sister Ann, she was 6 years older than myself.
Telling stories about each person.
They're at peace. That's the main thing.
But today she's here to visit a relative she didn't know.
Just always thought of him as being our uncle that was killed in the plane crash.
His story.
3, 2, 1.
The story of what really happened to Army Air Force Staff Sergeant Eugene Kalinowsky may be the greatest story she can tell.
He was only 24 when he died.
On October 15th, 1944, Gene was on his 50th and final mission when his plane was shot down by Nazi German forces. Initial reports said that of the 10-man crew, 2 died while evacuating the plane, including Kalinowsky.
For years, the belief in the story had been that the plane was shot down and that's how he died, correct?
Right. That's how I understood it. You know, that's how I was always told. And I think that's how they thought of it, too.
But Gene, in fact, survived the landing and was discovered by SS soldiers near the German village of Laubenheim. Carol only learned of how her uncle truly died just a few years ago.
After he had landed and they were taking him to some type of a holding place, he was shot by a German soldier, a SS soldier.
So he dies serving during World War II.
Right.
The story for years and years and years is that the plane was shot down, the plane crashes, he dies during the plane crash.
Yeah.
And then you find out that an SS officer, in fact, killed your uncle. What was that immediate sort of gut feeling you had?
I couldn't really believe it. I didn't know if really it was true.
It was true. Gene's assassination was witnessed by residents in Laubenheim, and in the years following the war, they haven't forgotten, including this past fall, 76 years later, when Carol learned of plans to create a memorial for Gene. It was around the same time that Carol learned the truth behind Gene's death that she was contacted by someone in Germany. His name is Joachim Hennig. He wanted to learn more about Gene's life and make sure the real story was known. And just as Joachim found Carol,
you want to tap that to turn your camera on.
We wanted to find him.
Hi.
Hi.
Today's the day, huh?
Today's the day.
And give two people who aren't so used to Zoom or video chatting,
He'll turn his camera on in a minute,
a chance to meet face to face.
There he is.
Joachim.
Yeah, hello.
Hello.
Nice to meet you.
Well, I take it you two know each other. Joachim, Carol, Joachim.
We haven't seen us
No.
live.
Not live. It's nice to see a face that I've been talking to for a while.
How long have the two of you been emailing with each other before today?
Since 2016. I told him I was a baby when my uncle left for Germany, and that he had taken my baby shoes and put them around his neck for good luck. So I've always kind of felt a bond to him that way.
You think that it is important that this story live on, correct?
I think it's very important because we must learn from our history, learning for the future from the past. And we must learn what had happened and that this never may happen again.
I look forward to seeing how your relationship grows from here as well. I think it's very exciting.
Like I said, I have friends. I have a friend in Germany.
Me too.
Right.
And the whole family too. The whole family too.
The whole family. Oh, okay.
For the last several years, Air Force veteran Gene Theroux has collected extensive research on the local servicemen and women interred in cemeteries in the city of Westfield and other surrounding towns. Along with his research, Theroux trains volunteers to help clean and restore veterans' gravestones, and in doing so, works to preserve the memories of those who served our country in the armed forces. Producer Dave Frazier caught up with him in Southwick prior to this past Memorial Day to bring us this story.
Tucked in the back of the old cemetery in Southwick, Gene Theroux and some volunteers are working to reset a military veteran's grave that has fallen over. Years of neglect has caused many of the headstones in this cemetery and others around the area to crack, topple, or just become unstable. Theroux has taken on the responsibility of repairing them.
I believe in the 4 pillars of service of the American Legion, and part of that strong is Americanism, community service, and that's what this is all about in the cemeteries, Americanism and civil service.
Some of the markers are made of sandstone and limestone and are porous, so it can take some time for caked-in biological matter to break down. Others, made of marble and granite, are easier to clean because the dirt is mostly on the surface. But what Theroux uncovers is much more than names and dates etched in stone.
Probably people don't realize their service, their sacrifice, what they gave, and what they contributed back to the community afterwards.
Theroux says that in the cemetery in Southwick there are 38 veterans from the Revolutionary War, 3 from the War of 1812, and 22 from the Civil War, along with veterans from Korea, Vietnam, World War I, and World War II.
There's several that were killed in action during the war there on the other side, including Robert J. Salvene, who attended Westfield High School. He lived right across the street from the town hall. He went down in an airplane in the Burma campaign, and his remains have never been found.
Another is Philip Atwater. He was 22 when he went missing in action in the South Pacific during World War II. His gravestone has been brought back to its original condition and decorated appropriately with American, POW MIA, and Purple Heart flags. For stones that need to be reset, a special tripod and chain is used to lift the stone, prepare a new base, and then lower it back in, setting it to the proper height.
What we did was we raised it to bring it as close to 22 inches from the top of the headstone to the plane of the ground and to level it. And so when you look at the monument, you can see how much was below the ground. And then ultimately, I will be visiting that headstone to plant more grass seed around it, because it's important to have good ground cover around the monuments, because that helps keep them in place.
Heidi Johnstone is one of the volunteers working on this day, and she also serves on the Cemetery Commission in Southwick. While doing some ancestry work, she discovered several members of her family were buried there.
I found a connection to this cemetery. My grandfather's father and all of his relatives, ancestors before that, are buried here, and this is my 5th great-grandfather right here.
Theroux recognizes the years of neglect many of these gravestones have suffered, but one by one, with the help of others in the community, he hopes to bring them back to the condition they deserve.
I just find it so remarkable about the service and the sacrifice and the call to duty, what those folks did. 20 years from now, or wherever we might be, and we can no longer contribute and participate, we have to make sure that our country is left in good hands, and that people know what liberty and freedom and what people sacrifice.
According to the National Archives, it's estimated that just over 58,000 Americans were killed during the U.S.'s involvement in the Vietnam War. That count would undoubtedly have been higher if not for the action of medics rushing into the line of fire to save lives. And it's the picture of a Pittsfield native on the battlefields that would famously depict the struggles that medics face each day in Vietnam. Connecting Point's Ross Lipman has the stories of the photos in Time magazine that gave a new face to the war in Vietnam and how the man pictured in them is being honored years later.
I say the toughest job in the world is corpsman or a medic, because no matter how quiet the day is, if there's a little firefight, they have to go to it.
They themselves, many of them, were shot. Not just in the line of duty, which is kind of a vague phrase, but actually trying to save the life of somebody else.
It was the unparalleled access to the images of war which catapulted Vietnam's place in our nation's memory. At the forefront of many of the battles that would make the nightly news back home were medics. Their job, erase the evidence of battle and ultimately save lives. One of them was Pittsfield's James Callahan.
I didn't grow up with him, but he was in my town for years and years. I think I knew him before he went, and I was unbelievable when his picture came in Time magazine, and he was a true medic.
This image, one in a series of photos taken in June 1967 during a battle north of Saigon by Henry Hewitt and landing on the pages of Time magazine, personified the responsibility, pressure, and in many cases, the futility soldiers faced in Vietnam.
It is certainly the case that medics were in the unenviable position of not only being vulnerable to ambush and wave attacks and in the middle of the night, but they were charged with the responsibility to go out and help wounded and dying soldiers who were often under active gunfire, pinned down in these exposed positions. Probably the most dangerous job you could have if you were in a combat unit in Vietnam.
In the years Callahan would live following Vietnam until his death from a motorcycle accident in 2008, he'd be celebrated locally as a hero, recognized as Veteran of the Year, and with the Berkshire County Vietnam Veterans Chapter naming it in his honor. The photos becoming a symbol for the burden many just like him faced each day, remembering the war.
It was something that I would say close to hell. I've seen families killed. I've seen my friends, and my first experiences. I've seen friends killed, and that's kind of hard to talk about.
But with support from groups like the VVA, James E. Callahan, Chapter 65, veterans have a place to come together.
That does it for Connecting Point for November 12th, 2021. Remember, you can always find the stories that you saw tonight, as well as exclusive features, digital-only content, and more online anytime at nepm.org/connectingpoint. And please be sure to join us again next Friday night at 6, right here on New England Public Media, for more stories of the creativity, culture, and community that make us Western New England. I'm Saidalis Bauer. Thanks for watching and have a great weekend.
Support for Connecting Point is provided by our contributing viewers.
The best journalism is that which builds communities.
We're on deadline.
I get real uptight about deadlines.
We've always operated at the break-even point.
The newspaper not being around